The NFL draft is less than a week away, and the biggest question on everybody's minds is who will the Washington Commanders be selecting with the second overall pick. Now, it is clear to just about anybody who's been keeping up with football that the Chicago Bears are going to go with their guy, Caleb Williams. I mean, it makes sense, and it's been that way ever since the Bears decided to trade Justin Fields all those weeks ago to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So with that decision done and made, it now comes down to what the Commanders will do with this second pick. You see, the Commanders have been struggling to find their franchise quarterback since Kirk Cousins left them more than half a decade ago. It's been a while, okay, and they've had a couple ups and downs. You know, they've gone through Alex Smith. He didn't really work out. He had a lot of injuries he had to deal with. So, you know, there was a lot of backups that would come in during his era. And then you had Taylor Heinicke, who was solid, but was never the for sure answer, right? He was only like a filler quarterback who'd be there for maybe 1 or 2 seasons. But of course, he wasn't the guy they were going to build their franchise around. And, you know, they've tried to use some late draft picks in the past, you know, on a Sam Howell. You know, just throw something out there and hope it sticks. Unfortunately, that didn't work because now Sam Howell is out of town and they have the second worst record in the NFL. And you would think that the Commanders would have made it clear by now, or at least hinted to who they were going to be selecting, because let's be real, no one is going to steal whatever guy they're going for. I mean, they have the second overall pick, so it's really up to them how this draft unfolds. First off, you got Jayden Daniels, the guy from LSU who had just won a Heisman. Now, for a long time, Jayden Daniels was seen as a great quarterback, but he wasn't the second best quarterback in the draft. No, that title would go to someone else who we will talk about. But for right now, Jayden Daniels is ranked as the second quarterback now that the draft is right around the corner. I don't know what's up with that, okay? I mean, for a long time, Jayden Daniels was seen as the third best, but whatever, we'll stick with Jayden Daniels here. You see, he had a stellar season at LSU in his senior year. I mean, let's be real, he is a super senior at this point because this is his 5th season in college. You know, shout out to COVID for giving him an extra year of eligibility. But anyway, in 2023, Jayden Daniels put up some fantastic numbers in the air. 40 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions, 3,800 passing yards on a 72% completion rating. But those numbers aren't the only reason that he went out and won the Heisman, because the work he was able to put in on the ground this season also went a long way into deciding his Heisman trophy. I mean, 135 rushing attempts, 1,134 rushing yards with 10 rushing touchdowns. You combine that with his passing numbers, and yes, statistically, he was a lock for the Heisman. But of course, at the time, there were still, you know, rumors about who was going to win it. Of course, you know, hindsight 2020, Jayden Daniels had this in the bag. Now, as a team, LSU did underperform. They dropped a few more games than they should have, and that's why people had their doubts on Jayden Daniels. But, you know, he didn't have his best team at LSU. He didn't have a Joe Burrow level LSU team around him. So there is that. And he's been doing these numbers for quite some time. Of course, this was his best rushing season by far, but he's been elite in the air during his time at LSU because the year prior was his first season in 2022. Now, for LSU, he threw about 3,000 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, and he had played 14 games. And then on the ground, you know, he also put in work there. He had about 890 rushing yards with about 11 rushing touchdowns. Not nearly close to his, you know, Heisman year, but it was an improvement compared to what he had been doing at Arizona State for the 3 years prior. And that's about Jayden Daniels' background. Now, the next guy I want to talk about that the Washington Commanders have a chance at drafting is coming up right after this. First, I would like you guys to stop a little bit, pause the video, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 3,000. Every subscription goes a long way, so, you know, if you just subscribe, it really helps the channel. Alright, let's get back to it. The guy I'm referring to is Drake Maye out of UNC. Yes, Drake Maye, the guy who's been dominating the ACC for the last 2 years, this guy. Now, he had been ranked as the second best quarterback in the draft for like 3 or 4 months, hell, since the season ended. Drake Maye was the favorite to go to the Washington Commanders, but things have shifted a little bit, and who knows if it's just smoke being thrown in the air. But I've got a bite, okay? Now, Drake Maye won the ACC Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year in 2022, and that's not to say that his 2023 campaign was any bad, because this season he was able to throw for 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 3,000 passing yards, which is pretty good for Drake Maye, especially on a team like North Carolina. Unlike his competitor over there at LSU, his team isn't so good. Hell, they lost their bowl game. But Drake Maye's talent has been able to shine in his 3 years with the Tar Heel. And I know a lot about Tar Heel football. I mean, I'm a Bears fan. I watched Trubisky, saw him fail, so I'm just hoping the same thing doesn't happen for Drake Maye, because I would love for this guy to have a long and luscious career, right? And let me tell you, Jayden Daniels isn't the only one who's got wheels on him, because Drake Maye is pretty mobile. I mean, the stats say it themselves. This season, he was able to rush for about 450 rushing yards on 9 touchdowns. But let's get to the 2022 season and the reason Drake Maye is probably going to be drafted in the top 5 this year. You see, in 2022, Drake Maye was able to throw for 38 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions, 4,200 passing yards in 14 games for the Tar Heels on 66% completion, and his rushing numbers were also good because he was able to rush for about 7 touchdowns and 700 yards. You know, those 2 seasons were great production from Drake Maye, and is probably why I would say the Commanders are going to go with him, right? I feel like he is the safer option out of the 2. Of course, Jayden Daniels has a higher ceiling, and that's always very tempting. But if you're a Commanders fan, you're really just hoping for the safest option, because you've seen quarterbacks come in and fail over and over and over again. Hell, I couldn't tell you the last time that the Commanders have been excited about having a quarterback on the roster since, what, RG3? Maybe early on to Kirk Cousins' career. Yeah, that's the last time I'm sure the Commanders have been hyped about who's been their QB under center. But anyway, I say all of that to say that if I were a betting man, I would put my money on the Commanders selecting Drake Maye with their 2nd overall pick. Now, there is a dark horse in this race that I wanted to mention because he isn't completely out of the picture, and that is JJ McCarthy from the Michigan Wolverines. Yes, the guy who just helped lead his team to a national championship. Now, was he a big reason on why they won it? Maybe not, but he was a part of that national championship team, and they wouldn't have been there without him. Of course, Jim Harbaugh is a fantastic coach, and he probably would have won one eventually. Who knows? I mean, this may have been his last year no matter what. We'll never know. And they had amazing players on both sides of the ball, studs on offense and defense. I mean, just take a look at a few of his teammates. They're also going to be picked in this draft, and some are going very early. So JJ McCarthy didn't do it all by himself, but you know, the numbers he put up, he's proved to NFL teams that he is a winner. He knows what it takes to win, and his IQ on the football field is pretty darn high. He may not have the talent or skill that the other 2 have, but you know, that proven winner is a big part of what these NFL teams are looking for. Anyway, that's about it. That's all I had to say about the Commanders and their 2nd overall pick. You know, those 3 quarterbacks, I hope, all have a great career in the NFL, but statistically, we know 2, maybe even all 3 of those guys are going to flop and either be a backup or out of the league in the next 5 years. So comment down below who you think is going to be not only the best quarterback in the draft, but the longest lasting too, alright? Anyway, like I said, that's about it for this video. Catch y'all later. Let me know what you want me to make a video about next time, alright? Deuces.